The day Willie Stone broke up with me, I was in a car accident. I didn't die. What died was the personality within me that loved him. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. I am a personality within Sarah Bell's body. My name is Zelda Bell. I always appear when Sarah is in her most painful moments. The first time I appeared was when she was 8 years old, kidnapped and stuffed into a small, suffocating car boot. On the night when one of the kidnappers threatened to cook her in a stew. If they didn't receive the ransom soon, I opened my eyes inside her body. Unlike the timid and weak Sarah who could only cry, I am calm, strong, and cold-blooded. I said to the softly sobbing Sarah, "Don't be afraid." Her whimpering paused, and then she asked anxiously in her mind, Who's speaking?" I gently told her, "It's me. I'm inside your body. You can call me Zelda." Later, during the time waiting for the ransom, she talked to me every day. "Zelda, are you a split personality of mine? Are you someone I've imagined? Do you really exist? I'm so glad you're with me, Zelda. With you, I'm not afraid anymore." Later, I taught her how to wear down the ropes on her hands and leave clues by reaching out of the boot when the kidnappers weren't paying attention. A passerby called the police, and she was rescued and sent home. I was supposed to disappear then. But on the day she returned home, it seemed no one welcomed her. Her father was too busy with work to notice she had been kidnapped for a week. And of course, hadn't received any ransom demands from the kidnappers. Her stepmother held her hand and cried, saying, "Glad you're back, it's good that you're safe." Then she turned and said, "Useless kidnappers, they should have finished her off earlier." Her stepbrother patted her head, his hand deliberately brushing past her chest and lingering on her waist, giving it a squeeze. He smiled. "Oh, Sarah's gotten thinner from all the suffering these past few days." Sarah's body trembled uncontrollably. She pleaded with me in her mind. "Please don't go, Zelda. Stay with me, please? I'm scared. I'm so scared, please." So I stayed, and since then we've shared her body. When it's safe and happy, she's in control of the body. When it's dangerous or disgusting, it's me. I'm different from Sarah. I'll directly and mercilessly retort when her snake-tongued stepmother makes snide remarks. When her disgusting stepbrother tries to peek at her in the shower, I'll threaten him by brushing a sharp needle past his temple and pinning it to the wooden doorframe behind him, snarling, "Next time, this needle goes into your eye." When someone bullies Sarah at school, I'll grab the ringleader girl by the hair and push her face into a sink full of water in the bathroom, releasing her just before she suffocates, saying, "Bully me again, and I'll drown you. Understand?" At those times, Sarah would always say to me from inside our body, "Zelda, I'm so glad I have you. Let's stay together forever, okay?" I've read books. I know that multiple personalities in others' bodies usually try to eliminate each other to gain absolute control. But Sarah and I are different. We depend on each other, keep each other company. We couldn't be closer. Back then, I looked in the mirror at our shared face and promised her, "All right, we'll be together forever." The face in the mirror smiled. It was Sarah's smile. Like a pure white peony, gently trembling as it blooms on the branch. Gentle, shy, clean, and innocent. At that moment, I thought, I will protect her smile forever. That's why I was split off. It's my only mission. She only has me. However, our unusual behavior was soon discovered. After all, when a person possesses two completely opposite personalities and characteristics simultaneously, no matter how careful they are, signs will inevitably show. Sarah's stepmother told her father that she often saw Sarah talking to herself in front of the mirror. Sarah's stepbrother told her father that she had tried to kill him with a knitting needle. The school teachers contacted her father, saying that some classmates reported Sarah sometimes seemed like a completely different person. At times gentle and quiet, at others cold and indifferent. This was a huge embarrassment for Sarah's image-conscious father. He slapped Sarah across the face, making her lip bleed. "How did I end up raising such a lunatic?" he spat. as Sarah and I were being taken away to the private psychiatric hospital. Her stepmother leaned against the doorway, watching Sarah with a smug smile. "Oh dear, I carefully selected this hospital for you, Sarah. Don't be afraid. Once you're better, you can come home." The private psychiatric hospital's method of treating Sarah was to use convulsive electroshock therapy equipment for electrical stimulation treatment. Trapped inside Sarah's body with no way out, I could only watch helplessly as they shocked her. Sarah and I tried pretending I wasn't there anymore, attempting to deceive them, but we were always found out. They would force her to look in a mirror when she was foaming at the mouth and delirious from the shocks, asking her what her name was. They would starve her for 2 days and nights. Then on the 3rd day place a tempting strawberry cake and milk in front of her, promising she could eat if she eliminated me. They wouldn't let her sleep, fluctuating the room temperature between extreme cold and heat. They weren't treating her, they were torturing her. I told Sarah to give up and go along with the treatment to eliminate me. But the timid girl found an unexpected well of determination from somewhere. She curled up in a corner of the vast, empty room, covered in wounds, hugging herself tightly. As if I were embracing her. As if this could ward off the cold and fear. She bit down so hard her gums bled. That same frightened girl who used to cry every night after being kidnapped now stubbornly refused to shed a single tear. She said, "I won't abandon you, Zelda. I won't let you disappear. We promised we'd never be separated. This time, it's my turn to protect you." On the night she was nearly killed by electrocution, I hypnotized myself into disappearing. Before I vanished, I told Sarah, "I'm only leaving you temporarily, Sarah. Don't be afraid. Keep going bravely and confidently. I'll be watching over you. If there ever comes a day when you can't go on, believe that I'll come back to be with you." She thought I was lying and threatened that if I left, I should never come back. Then she broke down crying. "Zelda, don't go, please. I can hold on, I really can. It doesn't hurt at all." I looked at her with a heavy heart, reluctantly closing my eyes as she wept in anguish and despair. An oath sworn must be fulfilled. 14 years later, on her darkest day, I opened my eyes inside her body. I didn't know humans could feel such profound sorrow. It was as if in the pitch-black night sky, the boundless sea and sky merged into one. The horizon was invisible, with only massive wave after massive wave crashing down. Her heart was suffocating in agony in the deepest depths of the ocean. But I heard her laughter. At 25, she sat in a lavishly decorated living room. The dazzling crystal chandelier above cast light on her snow-white skin. She had grown up and blossomed, her features stunningly beautiful as she smiled. The handsome, upright man standing before her, however, had an icy expression, completely ignoring her beauty. He leaned down and said to Sarah, "Your face disgusts me beyond words." What a nasty thing to say. Sarah's eyelashes fluttered, but the smile on her face didn't diminish one bit. The curve of her lips remained perfectly in place. She smiled gently, "I'm so sorry about that, Willie Stone." Her tone was soft and even, as if simply stating a fact. "As disgusting as this face is, you'll have to look at it for the rest of your life." Long after Willie had left, the smile remained fixed on her face. Until I sighed and said from within her body, "Sarah, you can stop smiling now." She froze for a moment, the smile slowly fading from her lips. Who knows how much time passed before she gradually began to smile again. I saw tears glistening in her eyes. She called out with a smile, her voice as light as a sigh. As if our 14 years apart had never happened. She said, "Zelda." I smiled and replied, "I'm here." Sarah at 25 was no longer the Sarah I remembered. The Sarah of old was a crybaby, timid, afraid of the dark, and often bullied due to her gentle nature. Now, she loved to smile. Her smile, though ever present like a mask, was always perfectly measured. Every gesture exuded a relaxed confidence. She told me about the past 14 years. She explained how she learned many self-preservation tactics. In that cutthroat, complex family environment, she learned to achieve her goals with a gentle, harmless smile. For instance, when she was 18, after her stepmother became pregnant and tampered with her car, nearly killing her in an accident. Sarah polished the grand spiral staircase in their home with a thin layer of olive oil. Then she stood at the top, watching coldly as her stepmother lost her footing and tumbled down, step by step. She smiled at me, saying in an incredibly gentle tone, "Zelda, you should have seen the blood beneath her." It was quite a sight. When she was 19, she seduced her drunk and confused stepbrother in the living room, as he was about to force himself on her in a fit of lust. Her ever-busy father happened to return home. Seeing this scene, he flew into a rage. Sarah, feigning terror, hid behind him, adjusting her torn clothes. No one saw the smile hidden behind her hair. After that, the beast was banished. He couldn't even show his face around me. "Zelda, your methods are too soft. This is how you solve problems once and for all, isn't it?" Then, at 21, she brought her beautiful but indecisive roommate home, who was always looking for shortcuts. They happened to meet her father. After that, her stepmother fell completely out of favor. Her roommate would link arms with her and say obediently, "Sarah, your dad said he'd divorce and marry me. Don't worry, I'll listen to everything you say." She was indeed obedient, at least ensuring that Sarah smoothly entered the company and began taking over the business after graduation. She told me many things, and I remained silent throughout. Perhaps due to my lack of response, her tone gradually faded until her face became expressionless. "Zelda, do you think like Willie Stone that I'm a vicious, calculating snake of a woman?" She sat quietly in front of the mirror, touching the face in the reflection, and asked me, "Zelda, do you find me frightening too?" I sighed, my tone even as I asked her, "Sarah, you must have suffered a great deal all these years, all alone." I'm not one for sentimentality, but I couldn't control my heartache. I smiled at her in the mirror. "I'm happy, Sarah, truly. I'm glad you learned how to protect yourself." She was stunned. "So tell me, who's causing you pain now?" My tone turned icy as I changed the subject. Indeed, Sarah at 25 had grown in a way that made me proud. But I hadn't forgotten that my every appearance meant she was in pain. Extreme, desperate, unbearable pain. I thought of the cold, detached expression on Willie Stone's face when he looked at Sarah, and his words, "Your face disgusts me beyond words." I couldn't help but sneer, asking her, "Do you like him?" Only when you fall in love with someone do you give them the power to hurt you. Even the stone-hearted Sarah at 25 could be troubled by love. She had no need to pretend in front of me. I watched as she let down her guard, her face gradually showing a confused, hurt, somewhat childish expression. She asked me, "Sarah, I've been so good to him. Why doesn't he like me?" Willie Stone was her fiancé. They had been engaged for 3 years. It was a business arrangement. 3 years ago, Willie's father suddenly died in a car accident, and the enormous responsibility of the group fell on Willie's shoulders without any preparation. He returned to the country to convene a board meeting and take over the family business. At that time, Sarah would occasionally attend some board meetings on behalf of her father. Before she attended that board meeting, her father said to her, "We're going to get our hands on the Stone family's juicy bit. I've had my eye on the Stone Group's foreign trade logistics line for a long time. If Edward Stone hadn't died in that car accident, I wouldn't have got a taste of it in my lifetime. I hear the one taking over the group is his son. Only 23 years old, barely out of nappies. What waves could he possibly make? Sarah, go and find out for me what this new heir is like, his temperament and character." So Sarah went, and then she met Willie. Zelda, you must wonder why I fell in love with Willie. I actually first met Willie when I was 16, after you disappeared. I was tormented for a while before being sent back. I was timid and weak then, enduring all sorts of bullying without knowing how to fight back. I could only call your name in my heart every day and bear it silently, comforting myself that it would pass if I just endured it a little longer. Until she was locked in a dark equipment room. Because of her childhood kidnapping experience, she was very afraid of the dark. She cried, screamed, and called for help in the pitch-black equipment room, banging on the door until her hands were swollen and red. But no one heard her, no one saved her. Not even I was there anymore. until Willie broke down the door of the equipment room, following the sound. He came backlit, like a deity descending from heaven to rescue her. In the darkness, he smiled reassuringly at her and said, "Hey, crying won't solve the problem, you know." This memory seemed to be one of the few warm ones in her memory. A thin smile appeared on her lips, dreamy and affectionate. She said to me, "Zelda, do you know? That small, suffocating boot has always been the abyss of my nightmares." But when Willie opened the door and reached out his hand to me, telling me not to be afraid at that moment, I felt as if he had traversed 8 years of time and rescued 8-year-old me from that cramped boot. After that, she started looking for him. By the time she finally found out his name, he had already gone abroad to study. Until many years later, at this board meeting, she stood outside the conference room, lost in thought as she gazed at the back of the tall man standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the scenery, until that person turned around at the sound, and the familiar features overlapped with that night 9 years ago. Sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, he smiled and reached out his hand to her, saying, "You must be Sarah Bell. I'm Willie Stone. Welcome." He didn't remember her at all, nor did he remember that casual rescue 9 years ago. Outside the spacious floor-to-ceiling windows of the conference room, rows of high-rise buildings sprouted up like bamboo shoots after the rain, and the glass curtain walls of the towering skyscrapers reflected dazzling sunlight. Sarah stared at him intently, then slowly began to smile, gently and nostalgically. She said, "Hello, Willie Stone. I'm Sarah Bell. I've been looking for you for so long, and I've been waiting for you for so long." This was a sentence she didn't say out loud, and Willie would never have the chance to hear. I asked, "But your relationship doesn't seem to be very harmonious." Sarah sighed, "I used the wrong method, Zelda. My upbringing only taught me how to hate someone, not how to love. Except for you, no one ever loved me, so I don't understand." So at the beginning, she proposed a deal to Willie. This was what she was best at. That board meeting made her realize Willie's precarious position. Self-interested executives, directors wanting to carve up the Stone family business, and distant relatives hoping for a piece of the pie. But Willie remained composed. Throughout the chaotic board meeting, he stayed silent. When many directors started arguing shamelessly over profit distribution, he seemingly accidentally knocked the glass by his hand onto the floor. The crisp sound was particularly sharp amidst the noisy arguments. The clamor in the room suddenly ceased, and everyone held their breath, looking towards him. The 23-year-old Willie Stone, with his handsome face expressionless, looked at the financial report in his hand without even raising his head. He coldly said in the midst of their stares, "Why did you stop arguing?" He raised his head with a smile playing at the corner of his mouth, his gaze sweeping over each of their faces one by one. The noisy meeting room fell so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Only Sarah sat across from him, smiling at him when their eyes met. By then, one could already see the qualities of a leader who could manage the Stone group in him: calmness, decisiveness, clear-headedness, and other excellent traits. Given 3 to 5 years, he would surely be able to secure his position at the helm of the Stone family business on his own merit. Later, in that empty meeting room, Sarah stayed behind. She poured another glass of water and placed it beside Willie. As he looked up in surprise, she smiled slightly and said to him, as if proposing a business deal, "Willie, shall we discuss a proposition? A business marriage." Sarah said to Willie, "Let's get married. I'll help you secure your position in the Stone family that you're struggling to hold on to." This was actually a very tempting proposal, but Willie, after his initial surprise, refused. "Miss Bell, I have no intention of using my marriage as a transaction. If I marry in the future, I hope to marry someone I love, not for a deal." This refusal didn't anger Sarah. On the contrary, she liked him even more. After that, she appeared by Willie's side a few more times, always when he was in his most difficult moments. Each time, Willie politely and distantly refused. Until the last time, when the major banks were pressuring him and he was struggling with cash flow. The rain was pouring heavily. After dining with a bank manager, he didn't open his umbrella. As he stood in the rain, Sarah approached from behind and held her umbrella over his head, sighing, My offer still stands, Willie. I'll help you secure the position you're struggling to hold. He didn't speak, just quietly looked at her from under the umbrella. Sarah added, if you refuse me today, tomorrow my father will initiate a takeover of the Stone Group. Why? Willie looked at Sarah, his tone puzzled. Why me? She looked away and lied to him. Because you need me, you need the Bell family. And you know my situation, I have a young stepmother eyeing me warily. A stepbrother in exile, and my father is still capable of having more children. The Stone family is currently in turmoil. If I marry you, I don't have to worry about you swallowing up or betraying me later. We're a perfect match, aren't we? Willie believed her, and they got engaged. If she had said she loved him, he definitely wouldn't have gotten engaged to her. Only a pure exchange of interests would make him willing. She could only get him first, then make him fall in love with her. She told me, Zelda, I'm so stupid, aren't I? I forced him to agree to marry me, wanting him to like me. But I didn't want him to feel grateful to me. So I'll never let him know what I've done for him. What did she do for Willie? For instance, she endured enormous pressure to persuade her father to abandon the plan to devour the Stone family business. For instance, she took a huge risk in listing the benefits of the marriage alliance to her father under his suspicious gaze. For instance, in response to her father's probing, she casually replied, "It was just one meeting, how could I have fallen for him? It's obvious which is more useful to us. An internally divided Stone family or a strong conglomerate, isn't it, Dad?" For instance, their engagement. When news of their engagement broke, it dominated all major headlines. With the Bell family's backing, the banks finally stopped putting pressure on Willie Stone. But Willie had always been a golden boy. And in his eyes, the engagement to Sarah was only a forced and reluctant submission. This pained him, that he had to rely on a woman to save his family's business. So he could only be polite to Sarah, always distant and indifferent, far from intimate. They did get along peacefully at times. They had many common topics and interests, and would joke about the old foxes on the board of directors together. Willie remembered all the important dates related to her. His secretary and assistant would send expensive and exquisite gifts on time. They would have meals together, go on dates, appreciate dance performances and plays, just like ordinary engaged couples. Although there was always a faint distance between them. Not the intimacy of lovers, as if they were completing a task. Until later. In the first year of our engagement, I went to see him at his company. He was working overtime, and his assistant was there too. They had just completed something and smiled at each other knowingly. Then I saw Willie happily hug her, although he let go quickly. But that assistant blushed and looked at him adoringly. We had been engaged for a year. He always smiled at me distantly and politely. He had never even held my hand, yet he hugged another woman. So I stood there, watching that assistant smile at Willie, and told him I didn't like this assistant and asked him to fire her. At that time, Willie's working capital all came from the Bell family. And he couldn't refuse Sarah. He asked Sarah why she wanted to fire this assistant. Sarah's tone was casual, because I don't like her. He didn't say anything. But the assistant, probably unable to bear seeing Willie in a difficult position, voluntarily resigned. Willie's gaze moved from the assistant to Sarah, quietly looking at her for a long time, then smiled sarcastically. The two grew increasingly distant after this incident. This time, Sarah felt pain because she had blacklisted a female celebrity who was trying to seduce Willie. This celebrity came to Willie, begging him to ask Miss Bell to show mercy. Willie wouldn't normally interfere in such matters, but he used this as an excuse. He questioned her if it was necessary to be so ruthless. He mocked Sarah for being cold-blooded. I thought of the suffocating feeling of depression and pain that permeated her heart when I opened my eyes in her body. Sarah looked at me in the mirror. She was smiling, but it looked worse than crying. Her tone was genuinely confused as she asked me, "Zelda, I've never used any of my tactics on him. Is it wrong for me to protect myself? Is it wrong for me to take precautions when someone is trying to seduce my fiancé?" She looked pained as she asked me, "Why did he say such things about me? Did I do something wrong?" "You didn't do anything wrong. Of course not. If anyone says you're wrong, that you're vicious, then they're the ones who are wrong, not you. I despise Willie Stone. I don't hide this feeling from Sarah. Like a scheming courtier whispering in the king's ear to frame a loyal subject. I gently persuade her, Sarah, dump him. She just smiles, her eyes filled with melancholy as she sighs. But Zelda, I've loved him for so many years. How could I give up on him? I say nothing more. Until we discover that Willie seems to have fallen for someone else. It was Sarah's birthday. No matter how cold Willie is towards Sarah, they are still officially engaged. After 3 years of cooperation, the Bell and Stone families' interests are deeply intertwined. Not easily severed by a few arguments. Sarah calls Willie, her tone gentle as if their recent quarrel never happened. Willie, are you free tonight? Let's have dinner together. Willie agrees. This is high society even when two people are at odds. They maintain a facade of civility, not letting a hint of emotion show. The private restaurant that evening has a lovely ambience. He presents her gift with impeccable manners. Though Sarah's smile doesn't change. I know she's genuinely happy, truly delighted. Even though it's just an unimaginative diamond watch. Safe and unremarkable except for its price, she thanks Willie. Thank you, I love it. After dinner comes casual conversation. Everything seems fine until even I notice Willie's distraction, he's lost in thought. It's a small thing, but for both him and Sarah. In their position, being absent-minded or distracted means danger. One must always have a cup of coffee in hand. With so many people, so many eyes constantly watching, you must ensure you're like a precise, constantly rotating machine, without the slightest error. But he's distracted. Sarah has to repeat a question twice before he snaps back to attention, apologizing politely. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you please repeat it? Sarah doesn't react, just gently repeats. Next Sunday, my father has arranged to play golf with the bank manager. He's invited you to join. He hesitates, then after a moment says, I'm sorry, I have plans next week. Sarah lets out a soft "oh," raising her teacup to hide her expression. When she lowers it, her face has regained its smile, gracefully changing the subject as if it didn't matter. After dinner, sitting in the car, she's silent for a long time before finally telling me. Zelda, he's hiding something. I nod, call the private investigator. Have them follow Willie. The high-priced private investigators work quickly. Soon, Sarah and I know the reason for Willie's distraction. Becky Wexford, a fourth-year photography student at University B. Willie had been invited to give a lecture at the school 2 months ago. And she had taken his photo for the school newspaper interview afterwards. I look through the photos with Sarah. Willie, usually in impeccable suits, is wearing a casual hoodie, looking handsome and dashing. He's walking with Becky along a tree-lined path at University B. Looking like a golden couple, even holding cups of bubble tea. Sarah's hand traces Willie's face in the photo. Her finger finally resting on his slightly upturned lips. Her voice is a whisper, helpless as if she's returned to years ago. She asks me, Zelda, do you think he really likes her? I scoff, let's find out, shall we? I find Willie. He doesn't even notice the difference between Sarah and me. I sit across from him, smiling innocently. Willie, last week, my friends saw you taking a girl to the cinema. I know ours is a business arrangement, but I hope we can be faithful to each other. At least not embarrass me in front of people we know. Willie looks startled for a moment, then speaks casually. His face expressionless, with a careless ease. It was just a casual outing. I smile silently. A few days later, he's in the papers with a female celebrity. They didn't catch his full face. Sarah and I look at the newspaper photos and laugh coldly. I tell Sarah, looks like true love. He's even using business tactics like misdirection to throw us off. Sarah says nothing, putting down the newspaper. And picking up the photos from the private investigator. Under a blooming wisteria tree at University B. Willie is bending down, kissing Becky's forehead. Even through the photo, you can feel the pure, sacred, unadulterated love between these two. How romantic. He had never kissed Sarah. Even though they'd been engaged for 3 years. I look at Sarah. She stares at the photo, expressionless. I say, Sarah, let it go. Let it go. He's not worth it. If it were me, I'd use this photo to negotiate with Willie. Demand his shares, then break off the engagement and kick him to the curb. But that's because I don't love him, so I can be clear-headed and profit-driven. But Sarah loves him. She says, no one can betray me, Zelda. I'll make them all pay. It doesn't matter if he doesn't love me. It's okay, Zelda, I've figured it out. I don't need his love, I just need him. Even if he doesn't love me, he'll be tied to me for life. Unless one day I don't want him anymore. He calls Sarah cold-hearted. Sarah smiles, the curve of her lips enigmatic. She says, then I'll show him just how cold-hearted I can be. The next day, Sarah was the Sarah I knew well, gentle, proper, wearing exquisite makeup, and conducting herself with grace. There was no trace of her losing control. She called Willie, speaking to him in a soft voice about an interview with a newspaper. Rich people sometimes have to appear as a loving couple in public to stabilize stock prices, reassure shareholders and the board of directors, while also declaring the unbreakable cooperation between their two families. That day, Willie was silent for a long time after receiving the call. Finally, he hesitated and said, Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. What else could it be? Probably about canceling the engagement. Unlike 3 years ago, he now sits firmly in his position at Stone Group. So he started pursuing true love. I watched the smile on Sarah's lips. The more furious and out of control she was, the more gently she smiled. With a light, fleeting smile and eyes so deep you couldn't see the bottom. It was a look I found extremely unfamiliar. She interrupted Willie, saying, let's talk about it after the interview. Willie paused, then agreed. The newspaper's equipment was very professional. Sarah sat beside Willie with a gentle smile. They were a perfect match, a match made in heaven. And even their appearances complemented each other so well. Someone sighed, how can there be such a perfectly matched couple? Sarah leaned on Willie's shoulder, telling their story as if it were both true. She spoke of their engagement and happiness, of the gifts Willie had given her. She said so much that in the end, it seemed even she believed that Willie loved her just as she described. Probably to save face for Sarah, Willie maintained basic gentlemanly manners in public. He didn't contradict a single word she said. Until the end of the interview, Sarah and I scanned the bustling crowd. There was Becky Wexford, pale-faced and distraught. When Sarah called the editor to arrange this interview, she had specifically emphasized, "You have an intern named Becky Wexford, right? Please make sure she's present during the interview." It was only then that she truly smiled. She asked me, "Zelda, do you think Willie will realize and call me a viper again?" I didn't say anything, and she looked up at the sky, as if indifferent. Let him say what he wants. How he sees me now doesn't matter anymore. In fact, Willie didn't get angry. He stood in front of Sarah, his tone very calm. He said, "You deliberately arranged this interview, which means you already know about Becky. Let's be open about it. Shall we dissolve our engagement?" Sarah looked up at him. "What if I don't want to?" Willie was puzzled. "Why wouldn't you want to?" "I'm willing to make concessions on the shares." "Sarah, our engagement was just a cooperation, wasn't it?" Sarah realized, her face gradually turning pale, somewhat dazed. "From the beginning, you've just seen this engagement as a cooperation? So that's why he kept postponing the wedding date. He never intended to marry Sarah. A cooperation partner. When his wings were strong enough and he no longer needed this partner, naturally it would be time to end the cooperation. He didn't even need to feel guilty. He said, "I agreed to get engaged to you initially as a temporary measure." Oh, a temporary measure. The true heart Sarah had offered was just his temporary measure. Perhaps because Sarah's face was too pale, Willie paused, somewhat surprised. "It's just business, Sarah. I've done wrong in this matter, but I said I'm willing to compensate you. You don't love me, and I don't love you. A union would only bring pain." Sarah laughed at his words. With each sentence he spoke, the smile on her face deepened. Until finally, when he finished speaking, she was laughing brilliantly. She said, "But Willie, what if I tell you now that I'm not indifferent to you? She had told me before that she didn't want Willie to force himself to be with her out of gratitude. She wanted him to fall in love with her. When he falls in love with me, I'll tell him about our encounter 12 years ago. I'll tell him I've loved him for 12 years, waited for him for 12 years. And finally waited until he fell in love with me. Zelda, isn't that romantic? We'll get married, have 2 children, grow old together. When I'm too old to walk, I'll hold our grandchildren and tell them the love story of their grandpa and grandma. Willie hadn't fallen in love with her, so she could only confess her feelings early. But after hearing this, Willie just frowned in trouble and said to her, "Sarah, I don't remember anything from 12 years ago." Sarah looked at him, the smile gradually fading from her face. He paused, then added, "Besides, I've investigated. Sarah, you were able to have your stepbrother exiled. And your stepmother miscarry and get divorced when you were just a teenager. And you helped your roommate seduce your own father." He smiled mockingly and said, "Miss Bell, you have plenty of tricks up your sleeve. So you should be used to betrayal and flattery in the business world, shouldn't you?" Slap! His words were cut off because I couldn't bear it anymore and slapped him across the face. Probably because he had never seen Sarah like this before. He turned back to look at me with extreme shock. I shook my hand that hurt from the slap, coldly looking straight into his eyes, and said word by word, "Willie Stone, you truly disgust me. Sarah has 1,000 tricks and 100 schemes, but she never used a single one on you. Yet you've been calculating against her from the very beginning. She must have been blind to fall in love with someone like you." With that, I turned and left. Perhaps my words confused him as he looked at me with a deep, inquiring gaze. I ignored him. Sarah remained silent within me. I asked, "Are you crying?" Her only true love had been cast aside so carelessly. I asked her, "If you hadn't met Willie Stone when you were 16, would you have fallen in love with him?" She paused, then told me, "No. But she did meet him." What could be done? His appearance in her life was neither too early nor too late, but timed with uncanny perfection. In Sarah's memory, he was bathed in an ethereal light. She was obsessed with having him, like trying to grasp a beautiful dream that had eluded her youth. I sighed and asked her, "Can't you stop loving him? You're too soft-hearted towards him. It affects my performance. I want to avenge you, but I have to consider your feelings." Her voice was weary, exhausted, and tinged with confusion. "I don't know, Zelda. I don't know which way to go." She was at a loss, and only Willie could throw her into such disarray. I couldn't bear to see her like this. I could only comfort her, "It's all right, Sarah. I'll walk with you. I will always, always be by your side. I won't betray you or scheme against you. You can trust me forever. Through wind and rain, I'll always be here. I'll never leave you alone again." I hadn't realized the extent of the damage Willie had inflicted on her. The day Sarah disappeared from this body, she had gone to try on her wedding dress. The shop assistant politely said, "Miss Bell, your wedding dress has been handmade. When would you like to come for a fitting?" Although Willie had no intention of marrying her, she still went to try it on. It was designed by the famous wedding dress designer. Adorned with 1,000 pearls and a precious platinum diamond, valued at £8,500,000. When she arrived at the shop, the well-trained assistant complimented her appropriately. "Miss Bell, Mr. Stone truly loves you. Such an extravagant wedding dress is rare indeed." She smiled. Until she put on the wedding dress. It didn't fit. This wedding dress wasn't her size. The shop assistant's face turned pale, saying, "That's impossible, these are the measurements Mr. Stone provided, we double-checked dash." She stopped mid-sentence, as if suddenly realizing something. She glanced at Sarah's expression, then awkwardly said, "I'm sorry, Miss Bell. We'll confirm with Mr. Stone again. Please don't worry, there's still time for alterations." Sarah didn't say a word. I think she probably knew it wasn't just that the wedding dress didn't fit. It wasn't that the bridal shop had got the measurements wrong. It was that this wedding dress was never meant for her in the first place. After leaving the bridal shop, she was hit by a taxi running a red light on the pavement. It wasn't serious, really. The doctor said it was just minor abrasions. The police said for such a minor traffic incident, you should settle it privately. The taxi driver, red-faced, said, "Miss, you don't look like you're short of money. I've got elderly parents and young children to support. Please don't try to extort me." No one took this accident seriously. Only I knew. Sarah had disappeared from this body. Before she vanished, she looked at that taxi. I heard her call my name. She said, "Zelda, I'm so tired." Yes, so tired. From a young age, she had been forced to compete and fight. After struggling for so long, it all turned out to be an illusion. Nothing but emptiness in the end. She was exhausted and wanted to rest. I took control of the body, and before she closed her eyes, I gently said, "It's okay, Sarah. If you're tired, just take a nap. When you wake up, everything will be better. I promise." I opened my eyes just in time to hear Willie talking to the doctor. "We've done a thorough examination. Miss Bell only has minor superficial injuries, nothing serious." "Then why hasn't she woken up yet?" "She's probably just in shock. She should wake up soon." "All right, thank you, doctor." Willie nodded politely to the doctor, then turned and saw that I had opened my eyes. The polite, detached smile on his face gradually faded as he saw me awake, until his expression was completely blank. After a moment, he spoke coldly. "Sarah, the accident happened in the city center. The driver was only going about 15 miles per hour and didn't even hit you." "Stop pretending." I ignored him. He probably thought Sarah was using this tactic to get his attention. He sighed. "Sarah, what exactly are you trying to do?" Only then did I look up at him. Cold, scrutinizing, indifferent. I looked at him quizzically, raising an eyebrow and asking softly, "What am I trying to do?" "Willie Stone, when you and Becky Wexford were secretly carrying on behind her back. Sarah was still your fiancée, wasn't she? Even if you disliked her and thought she was malicious and scheming, can you deny that she never betrayed you? When you were thrust into a crisis at 23, with the family business in turmoil, wasn't it Sarah who threw you a lifeline? These past few years, the cooperation between the Stone and Bell families has brought you considerable profits, hasn't it? Over the years, if you're honest with yourself, Sarah never wronged you, did she?" I paused, looking directly into his eyes with a smile, and asked one word at a time. "So even if you didn't like her, while she was still your fiancée, shouldn't you at least have respected her? I know your engagement to Sarah was forced on you. From your perspective, I applaud your courage to pursue true love. But shouldn't you have pursued it only after Sarah agreed to break off the engagement?" My way of referring to Sarah probably confused him. He frowned slightly, studying me throughout my questioning, and finally said, "I told you, to make amends, I'm willing to compromise. Within my means, I'm willing to satisfy your demands." I smiled, saying softly, "But Willie, if it weren't for Sarah back then, your entire Stone family would belong to the Bells now. So what do you have to bargain with?" I pulled back the covers and got out of bed. As I passed by him, I looked up at his handsome face. He was looking down at me intently. His eyes were deep, his emotions unreadable, with a flash of curiosity and confusion. As we brushed past each other, he grabbed my wrist, gripping it tightly. He asked, "You're not Sarah. Who are you?" I feigned great surprise, then smiled coldly and turned to look at him. "Oh my, didn't Mr. Stone investigate me? How did you miss that I once stayed in a psychiatric hospital for a while? Sarah is dead, Willie. The person standing before you now is a different Sarah Bell. Didn't you hate her? Congratulations, she'll never appear in your world again." He was stunned for a moment. I ignored him. I called the driver to come pick me up. When I got back to the manor, Sarah's father was eating, with Sarah's beautiful, harmless roommate attending to him. I looked into Sarah's father's eyes and said, "Dad, I will end my engagement to Willie Stone. Not I want, but I will." When my face was slapped to the side, I wasn't really surprised. The taste of blood filled my mouth and there was a faint ringing in my ears. Sarah's roommate let out a cry of shock, clutching Sarah's father's arm and pleading. "Oh dear, we can talk things out. There's no need for violence." Sarah's father spoke calmly. "You were the one who wanted to marry him in the first place. Now that the Stone family has grown powerful, you say you won't marry him. Zelda, there's no such thing as letting Willie Stone off so easily in this world." "He doesn't like Sarah," I said, wiping the blood from the corner of my mouth. "Like?" Sarah's father laughed, not noticing my choice of words. Speaking in a dismissive, contemptuous tone. "Didn't he dislike you back when you insisted on this business marriage?" I smiled. If there were a mirror, I imagine my smile would look exactly like Sarah's right now. My tone was light as I said. "But now, you see, I don't like him anymore either." I called Willie, getting straight to the point with a cold tone. "Willie, I'll agree to cancel the engagement on one condition, 49% of Stone Group's shares." There was a pause on the other end, followed by an equally cold and direct response, "Impossible." I knew he fancied Becky, but even that affection wasn't enough to cloud his judgment. With 49% of the shares, the company could change hands in an instant. I had anticipated his reaction, so I laughed. "No worries, you can give me the cash equivalent of 49% of the shares. Based on the highest point in the last 6 months." He wouldn't give up the shares, but Willie had money. It was an enormous sum, but I knew he could manage it. He'd be willing to do anything to get rid of me. On the day we signed the contract, there were quite a few people present. Lawyers from both sides meticulously examined every clause of the contract. While I sat by the window, watching the birds fly by. When it came time for the final confirmation and signatures, Willie looked at me and asked, "We're even now, aren't we?" You see, he didn't mention Sarah at all. Didn't ask if she would come back, didn't ask why she had disappeared. He only cared about severing ties with me. I took a sip of Earl Grey tea, something Sarah had never touched. She preferred wine and coffee, but never tea. Willie's gaze lingered on the teacup in my hand for a moment. I smiled, of course. As we were about to part ways, I called out to him. He turned back, surprised. I smiled at him, just as Sarah would have, and said, "Willie, Sarah doesn't love you anymore. She loved you for a long time. But I think it's necessary to tell you now she doesn't love you anymore." Willie said nothing, his eyes dark as he studied me, before finally turning and walking away. That was the last time I saw him. After receiving the money from Willie, I promptly cooperated with a press conference to announce the cancellation of our engagement. I smiled at the cameras, gentle, though the eyeshadow at the corners of my eyes seemed a bit red, giving off a pitiful yet strong impression. We've parted ways amicably. Our families will continue to be business partners in certain areas, so there's no need to worry. The Stone family's stocks fluctuated as a result, but it didn't matter. Once people forgot about this incident, his stock prices would rise again. Willie and I weren't celebrities, but in our circles, this was quite the scandalous gossip. For a while, everyone was speculating about the real reason behind our broken engagement during their tea times. I just smiled and said nothing. Until someone posted a thread on University B's campus forum titled, "Show off the campus couples you think are most compatible." Someone posted a photo of Becky and Willie. For some reason, this thread suddenly went viral. Someone commented on that post, asking wasn't Mr. Stone engaged to Miss Bell? They attached the old news interview of Sarah and Willie, with the headline, "A Fairy Tale Love in High Society." The photo showed Sarah smiling brightly, leaning on Willie's shoulder. Someone replied, "I heard they called off their engagement a while ago." But others weren't buying it, asking the critical question, "Really?" Looking at the season in this photo, isn't Becky the other woman? You see, I had told Willie that pursuing true love was fine. But at least wait until after breaking off the engagement before pursuing it, right? Gossip never lacks for attention. That thread was reposted from the campus forum to Twitter, and eventually derailed into a discussion about the most successful homewreckers. Even acquaintances cautiously sent me links, saying, "Sarah, don't be sad." I was so heartbroken that I couldn't help but laugh as I watched the Stone family's plummeting stock chart. Becky probably wasn't having an easy time either. I went to campus once and saw her from afar, wearing a mask, walking alone while surrounded by whispering and pointing classmates. Even though I couldn't hear them, I knew what they were saying. Look, the homewrecker. In the flesh. Shameless. Oh, I heard her academic advisor had even gently suggested she withdraw, given the significant damage to the school's image. Sitting in my car, I smiled and said to the sleeping Sarah inside me, Sarah, are you happy now? No one answered. I received Willie's call 3 days later. His voice sounded weary. Miss Bell, going back on your word doesn't seem very nice, does it? I absent-mindedly looked at my freshly done manicure, my tone nonchalant. It's just business, Mr. Stone. You have plenty of tricks up your sleeve. So betrayal and deceit in the business world should be something you're used to, right? He was at a loss for words. I laughed, and just before hanging up, as if suddenly remembering something, I spoke with a kind smile and gentle voice. Oh, by the way, Mr. Stone. Congratulations to you and Miss Wexford on your hard-earned happiness. There's something Sarah didn't want to tell you, but I'm not her, you know. I'm always eager to help others. So, here's a friendly reminder, Mr. Stone. If I were you, before dating Becky Wexford, I'd have someone look into her background. For instance, her father who's currently in prison for drunk driving and manslaughter. You might want to check who he killed 3 years ago. The other end of the line fell silent, with only heavy breathing audible. I started to laugh, bit by bit, with increasing satisfaction. I said, what do you think your late father would do if he knew from beyond the grave that his son had fallen in love with the daughter of the man who killed his driver? Would he claw his way out of the earth to find you? When Sarah and I first got that photo, we had Becky thoroughly investigated. I remember smiling at Sarah then, saying, this is perfect. You won't have to do anything. As soon as Willie finds out who her father is, they'll break up on their own. But Sarah held that photo, looking dazed. She asked me, if Willie finds out, he'll be heartbroken, won't he? You see, even at a time like this. In Willie's eyes, she was the vicious Miss Bell who would stop at nothing. He said Sarah was cruel-hearted. He said it's just business, Sarah has plenty of tricks up her sleeve. So betrayal and deceit in the business world should be something she's used to, right? He treated Sarah that way, yet she still dazedly asked me. If Willie finds out, he'll be heartbroken, won't he? This is the Sarah he saw as vicious. But it doesn't matter, because I'm not Sarah. Sarah was afraid of hurting him. I'm not. The more pain he feels, the happier I am. I've been keeping this secret. Waiting for the moment when they think they've weathered the storm. When they believe they've succeeded in pursuing true love. When they think they've defeated me, the vicious snake, the roadblock to their true love. Then, I'll deliver the final, fatal blow with a light touch. Go chase your true love, Willie Stone. Sarah and I, will always wish you well. But before you reach your true love, everything you took from Sarah, I'm going to take back, intact. However much pain you caused her, I'll make you feel just as much. It feels so good. A year later, Sarah's father had a stroke, and I took over his entire business empire. He sat in a wheelchair, his face drooping and unable to speak, his body immobile. I crouched in front of him, holding his old, wrinkled hand, and sighed. Look at you, how did you end up like this? He couldn't answer me, only maintaining his drooped expression as he looked at me, making indistinct sounds. That night, I looked in the mirror, and no matter how I smiled, Sarah's shadow was gone. The person in the mirror had cold eyes and an icy expression. I called out to the mirror, Sarah, just as she used to call me. I told her that her father had a stroke and was sent to a nursing home. Finally, I said, I've paved the way for you, you won't be tired anymore. Why haven't you come back yet? The person in the mirror didn't respond. They just stared back at me coldly. I sighed. Sarah woke up in spring. The flowers in the garden were all in bloom, a riot of colors. I said, Sarah, wake up. The spring is so beautiful, if you miss it, you'll have to wait another year. Silence. I said, come on, Sarah. It's okay to be heartbroken and disillusioned with love, but there's a time limit, you know. If you sleep any longer, it'll be impolite. A gentle breeze swept through the sea of flowers. I waited for a long time, but it was quiet and empty, with no one around. I laughed at myself and went to look at the mountain of documents in front of me. As I opened the first one, I heard a soft laugh. The spring is so beautiful. Yet you're looking at these headache-inducing figures, Zelda. I don't want to see that. I froze, then slowly began to smile. I said, then let's not look. We'll go to Cornwall, to Brighton, to Windsor, to Glasgow. If you get tired of those, we can go abroad together. The world is so big, the scenery so beautiful. Let's go see it all, step by step. She smiled, just like when we first met. Like a pure white peony, gently trembling as it blooms on the branch. Gentle, shy, clean, and innocent. She said, all right. A long, long time ago, Sarah asked me what exactly I was, if I really existed. To be honest, I didn't know either. But does it matter if I really exist, if I am just imagined by a mentally ill person? It doesn't matter. Sarah once told me that I was her sanctuary, bringing her the only light in her darkest days. Life is bitter, but I've always believed that pain and its antidote exist simultaneously. If you grit your teeth and hold on, you'll discover the antidote hidden within the pain. The only thing in this world you can rely on is yourself. So you must love yourself and never give up. It's like that quote. The heart is like a vast, misty ford, stretching for thousands of miles. There are no boatmen who can ferry people across. Except for self-crossing, no one else can help. Sarah asked me what I was. I am her, and she is me.